Kevin Williams.
Present.
Rick Humphrey.
Here.
Jack Scroggstead.
Yep. Okay, do we have any visitors today that would like to talk? Does anybody have anything to share that is not on the agenda? And is there anybody on Zoom, Wendy?
There is no one at this point.
Okay. Approval of minutes of the previous meeting. Did everyone have a chance to look over the minutes from June's meeting? There's no corrections. The minutes will be approved as presented. Remove the review of monthly claims. The claim report of properties provided by the treasurer's office is in the resource folder for your review. The full report will be included in the county board agenda packet later in the month. Administrator and department heads reports. Wendy, do you have anything or would you not like?
So I've already reported. I'm going to try and minimize my words today. I know that shocks you.
Okay.
I'll defer to the department heads.
Oh, okay, thank you. Does any of the department, Greg, would you like to give a report? Or is there anything in there other than a report would you like to talk about?
No, I don't have any right now.
Okay, thank you. Terry, do you have anything you'd like to talk about or is everything in the folder? Do you have anything? You gotta come to the microphone. Thank you.
Sorry. Yes, real quick. Danelle from Farm Bureau and I have been working with a couple additions, I guess, not huge additions. And I guess the internet's down, so we couldn't send them to your resource folder.
So Terry, the internet just came back up and they do
Okay.
have access to the resource folder by way of a heads up. Now, see, I promised I wasn't going to talk.
Wendy, you gotta limit how much time you're talking.
So as Terry said, she's referring to her animal control ordinance and it is in your resource folder. And any edits that Terry and Danelle worked through are in red in that file.
In brown, actually. It's
Oh.
kind of like a tan brown color.
So
Oh,
mine,
maybe you made it red.
yeah,
Did
so
you make it
mine
red?
mine
Oh.
looks red. I don't know, on my computer it looks red, but anyway, it's in color. It's not in black.
Yes. And it just basically is talking about guardian and working dogs. There's the Farm Bureau, Danelle has some people that were concerned about us going after some of these guardian dogs that are protecting their property and livestock. That is not the case, but we did make some exceptions to those specific dogs. So there's just a couple places that there's a little addition. You know, if there wants to be discussion or any questions.
So I know you guys haven't had a chance to take a look at it, but as one example, the animals running at large, there's an exception there that if a dog, a guardian dog, is in fact trying to herd cattle back onto his or her property, then that would be one of the exceptions as an example.
Okay, so does anybody have any questions for Terry at this time? Thank you very much.
Sure.
Dee and Alice, you'd like to give there was
Since we're next on the agenda, we have 3 ordinances possibly going to planning. And we'll talk later in the meeting on that.
I think we're going to talk next. Is that correct, Wendy?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's do, and then Greg from Lots was not able to be here, but his report is in the folder. Other than that, that should be it for the department heads. So then Wendy suggested that Dee and Alice give their reports before action is considered on any of these zoning, planning, and renewable energy items on the agenda. Alice has agreed to walk the committee through the zoning and renewable energy items on the agenda. So you want to give that now? Thank you
Sure.
very much.
Which one do you want to start with?
Whatever.
GSG or the ordinances?
We're going to have to cover them all, correct? So I think you just pick and let's go with it.
All right, so I'll start with the petition number 22P1591, GSG Wind LLC's petition for repower that is going to the county board this month. The planning commission recently or I'm sorry, the zoning Board of Appeals recently gave a recommendation to approve the petition with conditions that to be sent to the county board. So I have handed out to all of you 2 sheets of paper. At the top, it says conditions to special use permit granted under petition number 22P 1991. One is a clean copy and one is a marked up version. If you look at the marked up version, this is what the Zoning Board of Appeals recommended, and the changes in blue are corrections that I have made that I would recommend be included. Most of them are just cleanup or clarification. If you go down to number 4, the Zoning Board of Appeals recommended construction no earlier than 7 a.m., no later than 8 p.m., Monday through Saturday, within a half a mile of a non-participating residence. Typically, we don't like to hold up construction of these properties. We like them to be able to work to get these done. That is why I would recommend the 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Sunday through Saturday within a half a mile of a non-participating residence. You go down to the next one. This is a new inclusion. We are asking that they be responsible for any third-party engineering consultant hired and any legal fees incurred by the county from the start of the project through the time it's decommissioned. GSG would only be responsible for any third-party services related to their project. This would give us the ability to get some help on any issues that our office is not equipped to handle. The other change I would ask you to consider to the zoning board's recommended conditions would be number 15. The Zoning Board of Appeals voted that the petitioner be allowed to employ the reverse build wax turbine generator removal method. This would require them to haul in their biggest crane and basically take the turbines down section by section. The problem with this is that given the size of the crane, they're not going to be able to take it on the roads. So they're either going to have to walk it across properties, or they're going to have to disassemble and reassemble the crane to get it where it needs to be. The alternative methods they wanted us to consider were energetic felling or tilt fell, and they wanted to leave the blades on. Our biggest concern is that when the blades fall and hit the ground, they tend to shatter and disintegrate, leaving a lot of debris that is left behind in the farmland. As it is made from a composite material, it does not break down, it's never going away. So our biggest concern with the deconstruction method is making sure that the blades are removed prior to any felling of a turbine. If we allow them to do this, this also allows them to use a smaller crane to come in and remove the blades. It doesn't require the big crane that creates the most problems for the land and for them. The language that is proposed here is similar to what we were proposing going forward with our revised ordinance that is also before you today. And I think that covers the major changes to the recommended conditions from the zoning board.
Okay, thank you, Alice.
Any questions?
Well, yeah, do you want to do questions after we get our motion for the moving the 3? That discussion then? Yeah, we'll wait till we move it. So petitions going to the Zoning Board of Appeals, there is none. We have 3 petitions going to the Planning Commission, which includes petition 22-PC 67, text amendment to the Lee County Code regulating the development of a pipeline. A petition 22-PC 68, text amendment to the ordinance regulating the development of the wind energy conservation system. And a third one, petition 22-PC 69 text amendment to the ordinances regulating the development of solar energy systems. Per the explanation in Alice's report, I would entertain a motion to send all three petitions at one time.
I haven't
Oh,
discussed.
you didn't
those.
cover those yet.
No, I
Oh, we
have
haven't been
not.
on yet.
Thanks, Dee. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, so I guess you need to,
Covered GSG's petition. So
Okay.
the other three are
Yeah.
the petitions
Let's do those
for
now.
text amendment. Under new business? Okay, so yesterday, the Renewable Energy Committee recommended to send the three proposed ordinances to this committee. There's a private pipeline ordinance, a revised wind energy conversion system ordinance, and a revised solar energy systems ordinance. There are some changes that still need to be made. It is understood by the committee that myself and Stephanie from Chastain will continue to work on any minor changes that are grammatical clarification, making them consistent, because that's one of the things we're trying to do is line up the three ordinances so that they're consistent with one another. We are still waiting for comment from the Farm Bureau. I know a couple of the industry folks still want to weigh in on this. So we are still taking comments and suggestions at this point in time. And yeah, so that's about it on those.
okay. So you're good to go? So I'm gonna read this again. The petition 22-PC 67 text amendment to the Lee County Code regulating the development of pipeline. Second petition is 22-PC 68 text amendment to the ordinances regulating the development of the wind energy conservation systems. The third petition 22-PC 69 text amendment to the ordinance regulating the development of the solar energy systems. Per the explanation and analysis report, I'd entertain a motion to send all three petitions at one time.
I move to send all three petitions to the executive board with the changes that were discussed at the energy meeting.
Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Marvin Williams seconded. Discussion? Rick?
Yeah, I guess a couple comments. I'm not sure why we're sending an incomplete document to be voted on. If that's the case, I mean, Alice just informed us that there's still things to be done. I guess I don't like that all three of them are added together, but whatever.
So Alice or Dee, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're sending it to the board so that the board can send it to the planning commission. And so conversations will continue with the planning commission, and those might result in some changes as well. So this is not, we're not seeking a board vote to approve these ordinances at this point in time. Is that correct, girls?
Correct. There will be a public hearing on August 1st before the planning commission, at which time they'll hear comments from the public. As a result of that hearing, they'll send those comments to the county board on the 28th of August, at which time the county board would either make a motion to hold it over, or it would be continued to be worked on for further changes.
Dave, do you have something?
But the question, it's just trying to get this thing moving on a timeline. It's very close. There's very little bit that seems to be done, need to be done. It's got to go to executive, and then it's got to go to the full board to even send it to the planning commission, which is really going to finalize the nuts and bolts. To come back to the full board at that time will be when we decide to we agree we're going to lay it over for the month, or we don't agree and look at it. So it's, yeah, everything's not perfect right now, but we have many steps, a couple steps left to go, and actually about 3 months. So it's.
Yeah, John.
Why are we going to the full board versus just going directly to the planning commission?
Because the full board is the one that has to assign it to the planning commission.
Rick?
This committee is in charge of this, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so for a document to be sent to the full board, you would think it'd be completed after we've had a chance to talk about it, and discuss it. So it's in my opinion, I understand that all the procedures and steps that need to be taken care of, but I would prefer to send a completed document to them for their consideration. And then any input that they have after that to be tweaked or added to, so.
If you send a completed document to the planning commission, that implies that the public has no opportunity for input. So I think we want to be careful about that.
No, they could come back at that time and come back. Then I'm just saying is, under this scenario, it could go incomplete, get all the public comment, but it might not ever come back here. I don't know what the rush is all I guess I'm saying.
Alice?
I think it's understood that the substantive material in the ordinance is what it is. And the only changes we are considering at this point would be deemed minor. They're just cleanup. If anything major comes up, if anyone comes up with something that is different, then we're going to have to go back to the Renewable Energy Committee for further discussion. I think that is understood. We're not trying to ram anything through. We're just trying to keep the process going at this point.
And I think having Chastain come in is making a big difference. And you guys, Alice and Dee, have done a real good job of collecting a lot of information and getting us actually out of the bottom of the barrel and getting us up into the higher percentile of counties in the state of Illinois that have these type of things put in. So that's a good thing. And Chastain, that was the responsibility, or that was what we voted on, to have Chastain come in and clean this kind of thing up and get advice from them. But I think you guys are doing a great job doing that. So do we want to vote on this then?
So you have a
So do
motion
I,
and a second on the table, right?
We already have a second on the
Yep,
table. We already
that's
had a
right.
discussion.
Yep.
So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Okay. All three, yep. Now I would entertain a motion to send petition 22 PC-67, 22 PC-68, and 22 PC-69 to the executive committee for the inclusion on the county board agenda. Do I have a motion for that?
That's what we just did.
Jack?
No, we didn't.
No, he didn't. Jack, second, I need a second. Dave Bally, discussion. Yes, Rick.
Alice, I understand, I guess, the wanting to continue a project along, but yeah, I guess a little bit more explanation on why the hours have changed of operation, especially on Sunday. And I mean, we're within a half a mile of not participating residences. They probably don't want the project to go anyway. But we're from sun up to sundown, 7 days a week.
I believe our ordinance calls for 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. within a quarter mile of a residence, and this would give them a half mile.
But we're also we're going around the recommendations of the zoning.
That is what I am recommending. So ultimately, it is your decision.
Was that a change with Chastain? Was there, what was the reasoning behind it? Just wanted to not hinder construction?
To have it consistent with the current projects that are already in place.
Chastain doesn't live here in the county. Can you ask me why did the conditions get put on?
Well, I think the conditions for the original document,
Well,
what
I
we're
mean,
trying to
there
do
was a
now.
hearing. They apparently had a concern with it. So I mean, I guess I don't feel comfortable overruling the zoning board that went through the hearing process just because we feel that it's necessary to complete a project in a timely fashion.
See?
The times are addressed in our ordinance, and so that's why they're brought up during the hearings and conditions.
Zoning board recommended that we change that.
Yes.
Any other discussion? Marvin? Yeah, use your microphone, Marv.
So we going against the zoning board? That's what you're saying?
Amended those, yes.
Alice?
The zoning board has recommended conditions, and I've gone through those conditions, and to make them consistent with what we have existing projects and for going forward, I had recommended changes to you guys. It is ultimately up to you as to whether you want to adopt those changes or continue on with the zoning boards.
But why are we going against the zoning board? What the reason?
I think it's probably a valid point to be made that the zoning board has not been attending the renewable energy meetings, so they're not necessarily aware of what the renewable energy committee is going to be proposing going forward. And so Alice, being aware of both sides of the table, is trying to develop some consistency with regard to how we handle those.
And what are the difference in the times, Alice, from what we're proposing to what the ZBA approved or?
The ZBA recommended 7 a.m. through 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday. Within a half a
So we're doing an
mile.
hour before and an hour after what the ZBA said.
And on Sunday.
And adding a day of the week.
And Alice, just to confirm, that was within a half mile? Was the
Yes.
ZBA and
Of a non-participating resident.
right? And did you change the distance or in your recommendation? No, that was the same.
No, I left that they recommended the distance of 1/2 mile of a non-participating residence, and I did not change that.
And I understand that to get some consistency. And another thing is being in the trades, the quicker I can work, the quicker I can get it done so I don't bother you anymore. So an hour before and an hour after, the work's not going to commence at 6 o'clock in the morning. It's going to be 7 o'clock by the time they get stuff set out. So I mean, I think this is a very subtle change that just gives us some consistency with what Alice is talking about doing. Dave?
Yes, I agree with that. You know, some of these pourers that they use, they start before daylight and they can't get enough yardage into these holes even in one day, but that's one day. I mean, it's one day in the life of anything that's happening. And we have to have some flexibility here. It's a repower. So like you say, all the neighbors should already be in understanding what's going on.
And
And what's
these
that-
projects are in rural areas where there are less residents, and they're all, a majority of them are farmers and are already up at that time.
Oh, but farmers don't get up until 8. So,
After 9 o'clock.
but no, I mean, as far as, I mean, what I understand, Marvin, what you're saying, going against the zoning board, but we're talking an hour before, an hour after on a repower. The quicker they get in, the quicker they can, and they're going to actually be able to work longer days, which is going to eliminate their time, and they're going to be able to do it in a much quicker fashion. Does it show a savings to the county? No, but it shows the disturbance that they're going to produce might eliminate a full day, maybe even 2 days at the end of the project to let them go in there and work the hours that we're suggesting. Go ahead, Rick.
Ultimately, this is the county board's decision on these conditions,
Right.
so you can throw them all away or change them however you want.
We're just sending to executive, right?
Yes.
Our suggestions.
Is there any more discussion on this? No? Let's vote on this. All in favor? Oh,
The comment.
Bob Olson?
Yeah, ask him.
Yeah, Bob, go ahead.
Hey, Tom, longtime listener, first time caller. How you doing? So I had a phone call during the debate and I don't know if I missed it, but I know Rex Myers voted against it and I think he voted it down, and I'm just asking because they didn't specify the turbines and a lot of the equipment on this repower. I think that's a big part of that repower. I think they should specify it. Am I wrong with that, Dee or Alice in the room?
So it is common that they don't know all the exact specifications or equipment they may be using. We understand that that may change from the time of the petition to the time of the building permit. And so we have things in place so that they would have to provide us updated noise studies, updated shadow flicker studies with the equipment that they're using if it is different from what they presented at hearing. So that allows us to make sure that they are still in compliance at the time of the building permit.
So the previous ones never specified at this time?
Correct. That they typically give us a couple of models they're considering at the time of the hearing, but they don't order their equipment until after the permit is approved. So things typically change. If they can't get the equipment they were looking at the hearing because of a supply issue, they may have to change the model. So we take that in consideration and have things in place that allow them to make that change and then allow the zoning office to still make sure they're in compliance with the ordinance.
Sure. Is that the reason? I'm just asking you to speculate why Rex voted no then?
According to what he stated at the hearing, yes.
Okay. That's all I have.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All right. All in favor of moving this to the executive committee, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay. There's one petition coming from the Zoning Board of Appeals, which Alice already covered, petition 22-P-1591, petition GSG Wind. Petitioner is requesting a special use for the proposed repowering of the existing GSG wind farms. I'd like to entertain a motion to send petition 22-P-1591 to the executive committee for inclusion on the county board agenda. Do I have a motion? No, this was the one that Alice covered earlier. Right?
Yes.
This is the repower, which she covered before, and we're voting on that right now.
With the conditions we just discussed.
So what Tom originally asked for was a motion to allow the text amendments to go together for a vote, and you approved that.
That's the three.
The next request was for him to, what Tom requested was for you to then move those three text amendments to the board as a joint group. At least that was the intention. We get crossover conversation here because some of what is in the text amendments are also a part of the GSG project, conditions that Alice is trying to make consistent. So for clarity's sake, perhaps, Tom, what you want to do is revote. Is that possible? Is that legal, Charlie, to revote for clarity's sake on the last motion to make sure it was understood that we were talking about sending the text amendments to the board? And then Tom's intention was to now vote on the GSG project. So Charlie, I'll tag it off to you for the best process forward, just to add clarity. Would that change your vote? The vote you just made with the intention of, and what Tom read to you, was to move the text amendments for these three ordinances to the board. Did you all understand that when you took that vote, or did you think you were talking about GSG? And if so, would that have changed your vote?
On mine. I mean, the motion was clear that we were voting on the text amendment, but we were just talking about this 1591, so.
Right. Anybody else? Would it have changed your vote? No. Okay. Then with that said, Tom has now asked for a motion and a second on the GSG project.
So do you want to read it again?
Sure. Let's do that. For
Let's read this for clarity. I'd entertain a motion to send petition 22-P-1591 to the executive committee for inclusion on the county board agenda. Do I have a motion? Jax and Mr. Palin seconded. Any discussion? Yes, John.
Way back in the day when they originally put that solar farm in, it was to include a museum or at least an interpretive center regarding wind power. Okay. Well, maybe not, but
with that said, there is a building along Route 52. Different petition. Down by Sublette. Yes. Okay, I'm sorry. My mistake.
Okay. So all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, petitions coming from the planning commission, there's none. Zoning procedures, restructuring and enforcement updates. Jack, do you have anything that you would like to share with the committee?
Nothing I want to share. We're working on some things that still in the preliminary phases, and it's still preliminary. We're trying to get some consultants and some ideas, and then hopefully next month we should have some information we can share. So
Yeah, with this thing that Jack's working on right now is with the procedures and everything, we've asked the full board, eventually we'd like to get Chastain in there to help us redo a lot of this stuff so we can get rid of no nonsense stuff and put in things that make sense to the county. And that's where Jack is working with Dee and Alice right now to start that ball rolling. And hopefully, once we get some outline of some sort, as a committee, we can look at that and make changes to that or make recommendations to the board to move forward with those type of procedures and zoning rules. Thank you for taking that on, Jack. I appreciate it. We have nothing under old business at the present time. Under new business, we have a general overview of the maintenance department capital budget. In your onboard book is a draft copy of the maintenance department capital budget. I want to bring that to your attention and get your feedback. This request will be presented to the finance committee as part of the fiscal year 2023 budget. What we're doing in there, Wendy and I and Becky have been kind of working together, and we're trying to get a maintenance program put together for our maintenance departments, not to be, we're trying to outline job requirements. We have job descriptions for, if in your onboard, it's all in there. The outline that Wendy's put together, which she did a great job on. But what we're trying to do is encourage our maintenance guys. We're trying to split the department up from custodial to maintenance, so we can start doing more general maintenance. And we want to encourage the guys to educate themselves. Part of the program would be going out to Sauk Valley College and getting a HVAC class and getting a grade of B or better, and the county would reimburse them. And it's a step program for monies for the maintenance guys to move forward. There's electrical, HVAC, plumbing, and just general knowledge of this stuff. There's a lot of stuff that we will not be able to do as a whole, but this is going to refine the maintenance department to where we can do more maintenance and require less outsourcing of things. Not for everything. Just because a guy goes and gets a HVAC class doesn't mean he's going to be working on all of our VAVs and what have you. Those are very specific, and we have outside trades to do that. But just general maintenance things and stuff like that. And it's also got a pay program in there of how the steps in the pay get. And it's going to give us a better work pool. It's going to reimburse the guys to get paid for what somebody in that trade would be a comparable paycheck. It's going to make our custodial, if you look at the outline, how it's set up, we'd have a facility manager, a facility director, and it's all broken out into a chart that shows you the flow chart of how it would be. This is just a draft copy with job descriptions and what have you in there. And the committee, we wanted to get your input and your take on this, so we can make the maintenance department much more efficient as to what it is today. And we've been working towards that quite a bit. And Greg and his guys do a lot of things that the committee and myself don't get to see, but we were complimented by the health department the other day from our maintenance guys to go out and help paint a room. Those are the kind of things that we need to be able to go do and have the time to do that. And by restructuring all of these positions, it allows Greg to actually put work schedule for the week as opposed to putting out fires. We got a garbage can full of garbage. We've got a pitcher that needs to be hung. This kind of stuff, we'll be able to monitor how much time we spend on this, and we'll actually be able to put these guys into the work for the week and with tasks that we need done. So is there any comments from you guys on this? I mean, have you guys had a chance to read through this? It's been on the onboard. Is there any?
I think this is an excellent idea. This gives our maintenance people purpose. It gives them an opportunity if they want to grow, they can grow. If they, and I think that, I don't know, I think this is something we should have done a long time ago, and I think it should be implemented. I just think it's awesome.
Dave?
And many things, Jack. Yeah, this is something, when I got on the county board, I really was hoping for something like this. We started out as one building and, maintenance, whatever on it. And we have never really updated to the different properties and buildings that we now control. And, this is a good proposal on looking for funding. You got, boilers and stuff in it. We need to go to roofs, we need to go to tuck pointing, and we need these things, look in for a long-term plan. And like I say, we don't see just a fire, we know what's coming. So I would love to see it. I worked under a work order system, and then you can really track and see where costs were or costs aren't, or, what took your amount of time that each employee is, for their own hours. So some of these things can then be looked back and say, oh, we're spending way too much time doing this. Maybe we need to buy a machine to take their time off of this.
That's exactly right. And that's part of the process that Wendy and I have been discussing is we put together a budget and a maintenance, and it's a lot of pressure on Greg to put whatever amount of money's in the budget, and then we cut the budget. But when you have data and you can go back 2 or 3 years, and we need to start something and get job descriptions put in to protect the employees and ourselves. But it's also the job description helps us out tremendously. And I think through charting hours, and if we go through there and we know what they're doing, if we have data for 2 or 3 years, we'll know how much snow removal we had. Right now, we estimate. I mean, we put monies in there and hope we don't go over it. We can do better budgets with data. And this gives us the opportunity to start receiving data. And Greg's going to go back. He's been doing this for 2 years. He's going to go back and try to give us some data. It's very difficult at this point, but give us some data, because, it takes a few years of data to give a real educated decision on where we're spending our money and where we can improve. And Dave, that's 100%. I agree with you. Yeah, Bill.
I'll be brief. My compliments, and this is something that should have been done many years ago.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
And then another thing is, oh, I'm sorry. You didn't want to talk.
I know that I said I wasn't
She
going to
just
talk
can't help
today.
herself.
I do want to add clarity, though. There are 2 things on the agenda that Tom is seeking your feedback on, and we're kind of talking about both because they do get intertwined. There's 2 things there. There's the capital budget that we wanted you to be aware of, and we're going to need your support on as it moves through the finance committee process. And there is this maintenance step program. And again, they go hand in hand, and they are all part of our vision for improving the maintenance department going down the road. But I could see on some of your faces, you were not clear about what we were talking about. Well, we're kind of talking about both things, but there are 2 different distinct documents in there we're seeking your feedback on.
And the only other thing I'd say with the maintenance department and what we're trying to do is it's going to be tough. And again, this is a way to refine our maintenance budget. And it's not like we're going to be adding huge amounts of dollars. I think through efficiencies, we're going to be saving money in years to come. But to be clear, we have to have the data and we have to implement these things, and it's going to help us do a better job down the road. So, Dave.
And such a thing as this, I know Wentley and I looking into this and stuff, but having a county administrator have time put into this, I have to thank her very much for what she has done to it. You know, we can propose these things, but there are volunteers and the amount of time you have to have this. And so I kudos to, you know, thank you very much for what you're getting done.
Very good.
So a little background on the STEP program. What we're looking to do is we're looking for your approval as the Properties Committee. This will then forward on to executive and ultimately the full board for approval of the concept of creating this STEP program. The financial aspect of this will be addressed through the budget process this year. So we kind of got two different things going in two different directions. But Finance Committee, of course, will bring back a recommendation on all things budget related. So they'll bring it back to the full board. We are proposing some financial changes to implement the STEP program. However, it's important to note that initially that's going to be pretty minor. One of the line items we'll be adding this year will be a training line item. In order to allow these individuals to step up to the next program, and that's what we want them to do, you get experience in training, they're going to have to take some classes. So there will be a budget line item added for training within Greg's budget. There has been no training line item in that budget for all these years. Lastly, if there are any individuals that would qualify next fiscal year for stepping up in the program, we are going to be implementing or proposing in the maintenance budget a little bit of additional salary if any individual were to move to the next step. I think it's also important that an individual will not move to the next step without a process in place that will not just be the maintenance supervisor. No offense to Greg, but I've heard from board members that they want to know that the board has input when an employee would move to the next step. So it could look something like an employee will not move to the next step without the Properties Committee. It could look like something like an employee will not move to the next step without the Properties Chairperson, perhaps the administrator, perhaps the county board chairman. That specific detail has not been worked out, but I wanted you to be aware that it will not simply be at the discretion of the maintenance supervisor. There will be some other parameters put in place so that you all are aware of individuals moving to the next step. I don't have anything else unless you guys have any other questions on that topic.
And then one other thing, just, I'm not trying to sell this thing because I think it's something that needs to be done. We as a county have neglected our buildings and this type of thing. We have to be proactive to maintain what we have. Nobody wants to spend the money on this stuff, but we have to maintain what we have. And we have done a very poor job of that in the last, and of course, there was no money. I understand that, but we have to be able to maintain our buildings better. And this is an opportunity to do that. So there's
So again, just to summarize, the capital budget that you see before you is just for your awareness. It'll move through finance for approval or not, and then ultimately to you on the final full board. We are looking for a vote and a motion to move this to the full board, the STEP program. Because again, that kind of dovetails with the financial side of this. We need to have the program put into place and then budget for that program as we move into the next fiscal year.
For 2023.
Yeah.
So do I have a motion to move this concept forward? Dave Valley, second. Jack Scrogstead. Any further discussion on this? Rick? No? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I was an aye.
This will move it to executive and ultimately onto the full board agenda for your July meeting.
Okay, and then lastly, we have a LOTS mass transit update. No actions needed on this topic at this time, but Charlie is going to bring us up to speed on this topic.
Sure. I'm not sure if it's in the onboard or not, but there was a resolution as well as a memorandum of understanding that was forwarded on to us. That's going to be the same thing that Ogle County is looking at in terms of trying to move forward on the mass transit district. There's going to be several steps that have to be taken as far as the board is concerned and looking at moving forward on our side. I think we're looking at doing this in August in terms of going through property committee, executive committee, and then the full board as to the resolution, the memorandum of understanding. The one thing, if it is in your on board, and I don't know if it is or not, but if it is in your on board, what you'll notice is that there was a little bit of a circular effective date between the resolution and the memorandum of understanding. We've cleaned that up so that both would be effective on that same date. So that way it's not one catching the other. So again, because of the moving parts in terms of dealing with two different counties and trying to get the mass transit district underneath of IDOT, we kind of have to schedule it accordingly. So even when the resolution, if or when it is passed in August, there is still a lot of work to be done so that everything is in place. All of the assets and liabilities are moved, that the lease agreements are in place for the real property. And we'd be looking at trying to get that all finalized before the commencement of fiscal year 2024. So again, I don't know if it's in there or not for your review. It was not in there.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Charlie. At this point in time, we just wanted to give you all a heads up that it would be coming in August and so to be thinking about it. But no, Charlie, they don't have it in front of them anywhere and on board.
Marvin?
Yes, I have a question. Now, if we go to this transportation system, do we have to create a tax base for it?
So it'll be funded through IDOT. IDOT gives out a grant to create the mass transit district. And then what it is for, at least what the county board would be concerned with, is Lee County would have 3 trustees that would sit on the board. Ogle County would have 2 trustees that would sit on the board. And those would be decided by the board here as to what they would be in. They'd be in staggered terms, if you will. So it'd be a 4-year term, a 3-year term, and a 2-year term.
So what you're saying is that it would be any money coming from the county, Lee County and Ogle County have to pay for this system?
No, we wouldn't, no.
Because I know at the one time we was discussing this a few years.
I mean, that's what we're doing right now.
Huh?
That's what we're doing right now, basically, is that Lee and Ogle are paying for it.
Talking about like they have in Rockford, you have to end up paying the taxes, you have to create a tax. So this is not to be.
This would be through IDOT. It'd be different.
Go ahead, Dave.
Question for Chair. Would this, right now, we have to review as to the pass-through of the money? Would it come through Lee County or would it have its own?
No, nope,
So we would have no liability on watching the pass-through?
correct.
Very good, yeah.
And all the current employees would become employees of the mass transit district. And
At least according to the MOU and the resolution that would be passed, correct.
so as far as our maintenance department going out there and doing any cleaning and stuff like that, snow plowing, we're done with that then at that point in time?
I believe they'd have to do that on their own then.
And one last question, Charlie. I believe that when that was built out there, the county gave them that lot.
So we would lease the building, or not the building itself, but the real property to the Ronald Reagan Mass Transit District.
Is there a possibility of just selling it outright to them?
That would be against the advice of their legal counsel. I mean, we don't want to get rid of real property if we don't have to.
Do we technically own the building then too, or no? The county, or is that the states, or how?
I think the building itself would transfer. I got to look at the memorandum of understanding to give you the exact.
I guess what I'm
language of
looking
it.
at is for future repairs and maintenance on that building, if we still own it.
No, I think they would own the building. We would just own the property that it's on, but let me look at it.
Okay. We don't have any appointments at this time. I'm not aware of a need for an executive session. With no further business, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Marvin Williams, second. Bill, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, thank you.
Rick, it is just the real estate.